October 5th, 2021 Village Board meeting to order. Brad, will you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brad. Roll call, Allison.
Trustee Thomas.
Here.
Trustee Walter.
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
Trustee Bonnie.
Here.
Trustee Heron.
Here.
Trustee Lundy. Here. President Cohen.
Here. We have a quorum. Under public hearings this evening, we have none. Under appointments and presentations, we have the presentation of the 2020-2021 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Matt?
Yes, Jen Martinson from Lauterbach is here to present the fiscal year 21.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen.
Good evening. So I'm Jen Martinson of Approximate, and I'm here to present the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended April 30th, 2021. I know everybody has one in front of them. I'll try to refrain from making me flip too many pages, but I will point out some key highlights for you. I do want to start by thanking Matt for all of his hard work during the audit process. I know for us it's about a 6-month process, but for him he probably feels like he's preparing me around. So we appreciate all the hard work that goes into making this process smooth. As the board knows, an audit is required to be completed within 6 months. And really the goal of that audit is for us as auditors to be able to provide an opinion on financial statements presented this evening. We have done that. We have issued an unmodified opinion, which is just a clean audit opinion. It's the highest opinion that we can issue. And it really just means that the financial statements that are presented this evening are materially correct. There are 3 sections of that larger report in front of you. I'm going to touch on each of those sections and some highlights throughout. So the first section is going to be your introductory section, which will have a nice transmittal letter, which is an introduction letter to the audit report. It's written in management's words, and it's a non-financial letter. So a nice intro to the village, touches on some major initiatives going on. It's a really good place to start introducing the audit. I do also want to point out the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, which is on page 10. It looks like this for everybody to see. So the village did receive that award again for the fiscal year ended April 30th, 2020, which I believe was the 20th year, so congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. And it really speaks to the transparency of the audit report. We're also providing this report as well to the program, and we do anticipate the village will receive that award again for the fiscal year ended April 30th, 2021. So congratulations.
Thank you, Matt.
Lots of hard work goes into that. The next section is your financial section, and here I will also point out management's discussion and analysis, which is going to start on page 14. So that's a small section of the report, but really a nice narrative summary of all the financial information to follow. So I'll touch on some key highlights for the year. And I know this report is about 160 pages, so it takes this very large, rather daunting, probably, report and summarizes it in about 10 pages, so very easy to read, and will give you a full understanding of the financial information for the year in just that small section. Just to touch on some of those key highlights for the year, overall net position for the village for the governmental funds did decrease $1.4 million, with ending net position of $25.7 million. But just as a reminder for the board, net position does include your long-term liabilities as well as your capital assets, so keep that in mind. Additionally, for your enterprise funds, your water and sewer fund, and your refuse funds, there was an increase of $1.8 million for the year, with an ending net position of $21.3 million. To touch on your fund balances for your governmental funds, which is really your changes year over year in your revenues and expenditures, there was an overall increase for the year of $897,000, with ending fund balance of $8.6 million, and unrestricted of that balance is $1.5 million. Just to touch on the general fund or the operating fund specifically, although there was a decrease in fund balance for the year, with ending fund balance of $1.9 million, it was due to a rather large transfer that we used to fund capital projects. Finally, I want to point out your budget versus actual schedules. which we're going to start on page 90. We'll continue on in more detail on page 91 as well. Just to touch again on that general fund, revenues did come in over budget, and expenditures did come in under budget for the year. Finally, that third section that I mentioned is your statistical section. That's going to start on page 133. That section is really neat. It's going to contain 10 years of trend information for the village, all in one place. You'll be able to see 10 years of audited trend information in one section with the property taxes, fund balance, and things like that. Finally, that smaller report in front of you is going to include any recommendations that we have this year. I would be required to communicate with the board if there were any difficulties during the audit, disagreements with management, or anything of that nature. I'm happy to say that there were none. But we did just have a few minor recommendations. To spur the board's awareness, the reference fund did come in not in compliance with the fund balance policy. The second comment is really just related to the GASB statement that we will help the village implement when it's required, but just again, an awareness for the board. And that last comment, which is on the last page, is just, again, informing the board of any funds that are over budget for the year. So all in all, as we mentioned, a clean audit opinion, very smooth audit process. Any questions that you may have, I'd be happy to answer.
It's a lot to digest. I know you've had a short window to look at it too over the weekend, so does anybody have any questions at this time? I think that you should do your best to look through it some more, and if you do have questions, we can always address them with Matt. Jen, thank you. I know it's a lot of work, and we appreciate that all goes into it, and for us to look at it over a weekend with the amount of detail that's in here, it's going to take some of us a little bit more time. So I know that you're available if any of us have questions. We're happy to reach out, but we appreciate all your effort. All right?
Okay.
That was thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Airport report, Mr. Wolf.
I don't have a lot tonight, but JA Air has an agreement with Liberty University in Virginia to train their students for flight, becoming pilots. And as I put it earlier, that's the reason they're looking for housing in this area. The other item is Harbor Air is changing the colors. They're going to a red, going to paint their buildings red or with a red stripe. And the other thing is they're going to change their name. I don't know if you've heard that.
From Carver?
From Carver to
Because Carver's on the building now. It says Carver
but I've
Air.
been told that they're going to change it.
Okay.
But I can't recall what it is. But it's different, and but that's what they said. I talked to Amy at the airport, and she said they're changing the color and the name, and they'll come out at an appropriate time for announcing the name change. I think it's 3 letters. It's going to be short. More up to date is what Amy said. So that's it.
Well, that's great. As a side note to your airport report, I was there today. I saw Scott. He mentioned that he met with you, and he also added about they have an owner. They have a plane over there. I'm not well versed in the types of planes, but this particular plane, if you drive down 30, you can see it because it lands in water and it has these 2 bubbles, and it's meant to do tours of like Chicago. Yeah. And it's based here, and I believe that plane owner is interested in doing a larger hangar out there. So part of JA Air and their expansion and different business opportunities as their business grows, they're looking to do another big hangar out there. So interested to see how this progresses with Carver and what they're doing and what JA Air continues to do. But yes, their school is a huge part.
You're gonna go big for schooling.
Yeah.
That's, I think, their biggest thing. They'd like to get into commercial, but I don't know if that's their strength. I think schooling is really going to be their strength.
Yeah, and the other thing I mentioned, and I don't know logistically, Joe, if you can work on this or what we need to do or conversations we need to have, but I did speak with him about flights that would go downstate to Springfield, passenger flights. He says that they have within their fleet the ability to fly like a 9-passenger plane down there. I don't know what it takes to get through the red tape of making that happen, but it seems like that would be a nice asset for us to have here is when you call the needed a flight downstate is to be able to go right to Sugar Grove. And then I was talking to Madam Pearl today, Madam Chair in the county, and she said it'd be nice if you could fly to Springfield out of Aurora. So
they have talked about that for several years of the flights down to Springfield. It's a bad amount of getting the right number of passengers to make it worthwhile. Mm-hmm. So, but maybe if it's advertised, it could happen. They do want to do Springfield. I know that they have for years, but whether it'll happen, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody have any questions for Joe?
I would like to give a report, but at number 10 later in the meeting.
You bet. You can do that, but we also have public comments coming next for items scheduled for action. Is it about an action item?
No.
Okay.
No.
We'll try to get to 10 as quickly as we can.
That's all right.
Okay.
I'm in no hurry.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Okay.
I'll look into some of that.
Up next, we have public comment on items scheduled for action. This evening, under the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from September 21st, 2021 village board meeting, approval of the vouchers, a resolution approving a PSA for wastewater system master plan, an ordinance updating animal control regulations, approval of acceptance of the April 30th, 2021 comprehensive annual financial report. Under general business, we have an ordinance granting a special use to operate a storage container rental business at 6 Main Street, an ordinance amending outdoor storage fencing requirements, an ordinance approving zoning variation at 6 Main Street, an ordinance approving a final plan unit development for Sugar Grove Center Lot 17, an ordinance amending the Village of Sugar Grove Code of Ordinances regarding meetings, rules of order and procedure, village president, and item F, resolution adopting an emergency interim succession plan, electing a president pro tem and temporary chairman. Are there any public comments at this time on any items scheduled for action this evening? Hearing none, we will close that portion. Can I get a motion? Oh, are there any items to remove? Does any board member like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda as stated, previously stated?
So moved. Seconded.
I have a first out of trustee Heron and a second out of trustee Bonnie. Roll call please, Allison.
Trustee Heron.
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie.
Aye.
Trustee Walter.
Aye.
Trustee Shomez.
Aye.
Trustee Lundy. Trustee White.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Under general business, we have an ordinance granting a special use to operate a storage container rental business at 6 Main Street. Walter.
All right. Last time we discussed this, we had discussed all three actions together. I think I'll do the same tonight, but obviously the separate actions required. But the gist of it is, since the last meeting, or at the last meeting, the village board had expressed general consent with the special use permit, although there were some issues about or not issues, but concerns about the planning commission's recommendations for conditions of approval, and the attached ordinance or the trustee permit addresses those concerns. The matter of the fence variation that also was discussed, and there wasn't much direction otherwise from those more concerned that. But most of the discussion at the last meeting centered around the zoning variation related to the fence and where the fence would be located along Main Street front of the storage lot. And while there were several proposals or alternatives that were identified by the village board, I met with the applicant on the premises to review all those options and possibly identify others. And the long and short of it is the applicant has a need for a storage yard and used locating the fence at any setback from Main Street as reducing the storage area, and that's not palatable to them. I did offer as a kind of I guess a middle ground, the possibility of moving the fence at the lot line along Main Street, but moving the corner back farther from the driveway to the business, and that was let's say it wasn't the preferred choice by the applicant. So where we stand with this is the issues come down to where the fence is going to be located to screen the storage yard. And effectively had two options. The option that was originally proposed, I'm sorry, the option where it was originally proposed, identified as A on the map, or the setback that was suggested by the village board, either the B1 and the B2 location.
Okay.
And that's where we're at.
Okay. Discussion? Anyone want to lead off in discussion on this particular item? All right, Jamie, floor is yours.
Well, as I stated last time, I'm not in favor of a fence coming out beyond the building on this property. I mean, it's Main Street. I think driving down Main Street, I think I gave everybody some pictures of what the fence was out of Hartford. It's something that's been there a while. And I think over time it's going to be something that we would regret doing. I much prefer the option B. Let's see which one is it? B1, just because I think then they can have more room to maneuver and park vehicles between the fence and the street. And I understand that they don't want to have to pave any of the property because they don't own it, but I mean, it's, there's lots of, I've dealt with lots of leases where, you have to make improvements to the property and lease it. I think this is one of them. I feel like what we're doing here is being asked to come up with a solution that condones everything that the village has brought forth the property under various violations. And so if you feel like it's basically saying if you violate our ordinances, then we'll come up with a way to get you out of it. I think it would give them room to do what they need to do. Some of the the bottom shows a nice fence that would come across, that doesn't have to swing out or anything. So that they'd still be able to have that maneuverability without having all the bulkiness, especially if the fence that's going to be 2 feet taller than this in these pictures. Which is very, these comply with the ordinances there. I just don't think we should be, at a time when we're trying to make, Main Street, something a little bit better. I think it should be, doing something at the end of the street that's not going to accomplish that.
I just want to make clear to the record that this is not brought forward, in my opinion, as the paving of the parking lot and striping of the parking lot. This isn't a way to skirt them. It is and it isn't. To me, having a paved parking lot is so that you have customers that are coming and going on that paved parking lot and parking in that paved parking lot. That is not how they utilize this property. So asking them to pave and stripe an area that is truly a storage yard doesn't make any sense. So how do they get in compliance with being a storage yard? It's fencing it. So we have a couple of things here. The fence brings them into compliance regarding that and not paving and striping. But then we have the storage container business on top of it. So in my opinion, I don't know that we're trying to skirt the system and amending this for them because it suits them. I really truly believe that it's not a parking lot. Their customers aren't driving up and trying to find a spot over there to make their way into the business and then talk to them. That is where they take their customers' cars after, and it is a storage yard. Like we have many storage yards in the community. That's how they utilize it. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, we have our ordinances that say this is what you fit in, and so fit in it. And they're asking us to expand that so that they can fit more in. And I don't think that that's really our job to do that at the expense of the aesthetics of Main Street.
By fit more in, are you talking about square footage or fit more in as far as bringing another business next door?
Either one. Either one, really.
Does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that they're trying to, I see what they're trying to do as far as get that fenced off so that they don't have to pay for a parking lot. And I think that that's the better, the more affordable of the two options, which I think my goals tend to be moving forward, making sure that things are more in compliance when a business goes in. But an established business, if they're working to make changes to continue to be profitable and stay in business and stay in Sugar Grove, I think that I'm more willing to work with them on things like this when we have an opportunity to work with them and help them out. I don't know what a parking lot would cost in this area, but it seems like if I was the business owner, it would be an unneeded expense to have, but to get into compliance, to have to just put up a fence, I think is the much more reasonable option for me as a business owner. And so I think that I would be willing to work with them on that part, keep them from having the expense of a parking lot for when they don't need a parking lot.
I think that you bring up some valid points in these examples that he has shown us. I'm happy to pass my copy, but if we can get a copy to Scott and Charlie so that they can see what we're looking at.
And is there something that we can do to have more control over this?
Yeah.
Or we just say a fence is a fence, and because there's some sort of liner up to conceal that's falling down, there's faded wood that's parts of the fence is settled, or it's uneven, and
What is the fence material on the property that is filed for permit on the opposite side of the street?
That's a solid wall fence.
They're wood?
Yeah.
It's privacy fence, okay. And out of the examples that Jamie has put in front of us, despite the color, I like the green one the best.
yeah.
Right, and that was the one that's maintained with us. Quite frankly, the wooden fence looks the worst.
Yeah.
Because they're, they don't maintain it, and it's just,
And with the exception of the color, we'd like it to kind of be cohesive with what's happening down there. I don't know that green is really the best option.
But I mean,
I
it
like
still
the
shows
fence.
you, it still shows you the bulkiness of it, that's the thing, that's still gonna have. I'm sorry?
This isn't eight.
No, this is probably 6.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's gonna need it
Oh,
taller.
yeah.
It's maybe bulkier.
And then also in our packet is a mock-up to scale, from what I understand, Walter.
Yes.
I see a van behind there and not through the screen. So I'm just trying to understand where you put this on, where the light pole is, obviously you drew past it. Is that on the A1 exhibit or A exhibit on?
Yes,
Okay,
that's as proposed.
okay. Okay,
That's just a 6 foot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not an
But that matches the one across the street.
Yeah, I don't think there's an eight foot.
Well, at this scale, the 2 feet is immaterial.
Is it the higher elevation on the one side of the road? I don't even know. I don't know if the east side is higher or if it's perfectly flat.
Well, if this car is right,
That looks like a van behind there.
I can't tell.
Okay, so it sounds like fence material. Can we get to the cuspid of the first issue is fence location. First of all, we have a few things on the agenda this evening. We have, the first item is actually granting a special use to operate the storage container rental business. And before I ask for any motions, I just want to make sure, are we good with that? Or does that coincide in your mind with the fence in approving the business, the special use?
I don't have a problem with having the use there of the storage container business, but if it requires us to put a fence out further on the Main Street, then I'm not in favor.
Okay. Okay, so the first, yes.
I visited the location and the picture here. Gives me visual, as I saw it first. Normally, I'm a visual, like to keep things look nice, visual appearance and all that. I don't have an issue with fence option A, that location. It's a totally dead-end street. It is a business. The neighbor across the street doesn't have any concerns. I think it will look okay. It's not a high volume area where people are coming through. It's off to the side and corner. So I don't have personally any strong opinion against that option.
And I don't think, it's not a high volume area, and it's not an area that it's going to experience new growth either.
Yeah, there's nothing else to be done with that parcel back there. Trustee Bonnie, do you have any comments, or Trustee Shomas, or Trustee Lundy?
Yeah, I'll just say that I also went through there, went by there. I think any fence that conceals the majority of the work there is probably the best. As far as being parked outside, regardless whether to be picked up or to be worked on, I feel it should be behind the fence. I actually think it looks worse when the car is parked along the side there than behind the fence anyway. So I really have no issue with A either. I see Trustee White's, I understand his concerns. I think also with the neighbor putting their fence up now on the opposite side, it kind of takes away a little bit of my concerns of it being so bulky. Fencing on both sides as you come down to the dead end, not much traffic like Trustee Walter said, so that's kind of my position.
I shared a lot of my opinions and we talked about that. I mean, I tend to agree with Trustee White that I would individually prefer the fence to be slid over. I understand the challenges that it happens there and requiring at least a part of that parking lot to go through some improvements. I'm wondering if we're already giving a waiver on the fence. Should we also consider doing the same on the? Is the issue with the paved area with the business owners there, right? Because I know you had mentioned earlier that they had some concerns as far as shifting the fence back. Whether or not I don't think we fully understand are the concerns related to the reduction in square footage of the storage space, or whether it's the fact that they would then have to maintain some sort of a parking area that wouldn't end up being used.
Well, it's definitely the reduction of the storage area is a concern, and then if the fence is set back from Main Street, what can they use that space for? In either example, or I'm sorry, either option B1 or B2, the space is not sufficiently large enough to accommodate parking spaces that would meet our requirements of access and aisles and all of that. The alternative is to landscape it, and the applicant feels he's losing space that he's paying for.
Space that was made available by IDOT.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand the letter of the law here. I understand the spirit of the law as well. Right? We have a business owner that, again, as I shared last time, who's, got a bit of, was having some success in the business and wants to grow and expand it. So the comments that Trustee Aaron and Trustee Walter shared, I fully understand that. Yes, I would prefer that it be slid back a little bit. Are my opinions strong enough to basically for that one item to get in the way of the other two that are being considered in order to make this thing happen? Right? We've got three different things in consideration there, right? So, yeah. So if you're looking for my opinion on a yes or no right now, I'll kind of tell you. I mean,
Okay.
I'm teetering either way.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Walter, what's the status of the fence across the street? Is that permit going to be modified at all, or what's going on with that?
Well, we issued a permit. We're evaluating what to do with the conflict that was created. We're evaluating what to do with what was about the conflict that was created by the issue of permit error. And the issue there is the setback of the fence from Main Street.
What is the height of the fence?
On a residential lot?
Yeah. Since it's a corner side yard, the maximum height is 3 feet.
Yeah, but they want a 6-foot fence, so they have to move the fence.
So they move it back to the house?
Right.
So then, okay.
So this would not, unless they get a variance on their fence goes to this side, even with the house.
Yes.
Unless they get that variance.
Yeah.
We've created our own problems with this situation. All the way around. I mean, that's, again, that's what I said at the last meeting. I mean, this is a problem caused by us, not by not by the business necessarily, in my
That's not,
I mean, they're changing the business, and it's causing issues with regard to how much room they have to expand the business.
they were operating not in compliance with village code.
because they didn't have a fence.
Regardless, they were doing it. The village didn't like all of a sudden come in and go, we're changing the ordinance and now you're no longer.
Correct.
Because the point being, it's not, the village didn't create a problem.
Yeah, I know, but they
No,
were operating it for
the
a while.
problem is that they're parking cars on a non-paved surface, which is a violation. They don't want to pave it, so their alternative is to treat it as a storage yard, which doesn't have to be paved, but it has that fence around it. So they could pave it or they can fence it.
And the fencing is cheaper.
The fencing is cheaper, and that's fine. There's other benefits to a fence too, screening, da, da, da. So then the question becomes, okay, if you go down the fence route, per our code, it can't be where they want it. So they're asking for a variance to put it where they want it, so they can accommodate, I assume, their existing business and the pods business that they're proposing. Good or bad, that's what they're proposing. I think that the issue that just came up is the fence across the street was issued a permit in error because it's a corner side yard, which only allows a 3-foot fence. So the question where it's being reviewed is as of today, the fence construction has not started. So a reasonable position may be to notify them and say that permit was issued in error. We either have to come back and seek a variance to put that fence there, or you have to alter it to where it's allowed for the ordinance. So I think the point being is that if and I'm not saying it is, if part of the rationale to allow this variance is because that's what's going across the street, and it shouldn't be going across the street, and likely won't be unless they come back and ask for variance, at which point you'll say, well, we approved it across the street, so we might as well approve it there.
Right.
I'm not saying that means you should deny this one. I'm just saying is that neither one is permitted now.
Right.
So you're likely either going to permit them both, a variance on both sides of the street for, that one is a 6-foot, this is an 8-foot, or you'd probably say, you wouldn't have to say no to both.
So here's where I'm at, right? We got a business that's successful. Let's make it as easy as possible. It sounds like things are being overcomplicated a little bit. And look, if that means let me put in the fence to continue to operate. The neighbors don't seem to have a problem with it. There you go.
Okay?
And do we put something in this saying that it's for this business, that if this business is sold and turned into a microbrewery or something else, that they have to take that fence down and put in a hard lot?
I don't believe you can.
Or it stays with this no matter what?
It's gonna stay with the land.
With the property, not the business, per the use. So if somebody else comes in with a company that, or a
Even though it's
business
leased
that
land?
requires parking spaces per our parking code, then they just have a fenced off area that they don't have to do parking spaces?
Well, that would be a different violation.
Right.
Yeah, and so have to meet whatever.
Correct, well, that's what I'm saying, if they come in and they apply for something else, then they have to come up with whatever code that is.
Depending on.
No, because you're
So
giving.
what I've seen is an old gas station, a bigger old gas station turned into a microbrewery. And if there was any sort of fencing around, so this is a repair shop, and then we've got this fence, but they don't have any parking for their business, then does that?
They would have to create parking for their business, and
Right.
whether that entails removing a fence, or not, I don't know.
But they would still have to then, even within the fence or somewhere else, they would have to have parking.
So if they really wanted to come in and use outdoor storage, they could do outdoor storage in the
Correct.
fenced area.
But they don't have parking.
But they have to solve their other problems,
Correct.
however they have to get that special use
Okay.
on property or not. And then if they get rid of the special use and do something else, then the special use would be
No
no
longer.
longer.
And, obviously part of the concern here too is aesthetics, right? That's the biggest thing that's coming up is aesthetics. So the way the ordinance reads, it just speaks of chain link. Let me find it. I was here a second ago, I just don't know which one it was in. So hold on. Was it the first? I think it was the second. I apologize, I'm jumping to the second
The
item.
zoning amendment is proposing allowing chain link fence with the privacy slats or mesh fabric only in a specific geographic area that is zone B3. And this property happens to fall in that geographic area.
So I guess my question would be, go ahead,
Well,
what?
the special use itself doesn't add as a condition of fence. It doesn't-
No, the mayor was talking about fence requirements. That's part of this package. We're amending the
No, right from the ordinance standpoint, but from a special use standpoint, we need to add in here the.
That they need to have the
conditions that
fence?
have to put in the fence, according to what we.
I don't know if the fence is a requirement of the special use. I don't know that that's what we were trying to do.
All storage containers must be kept within a fenced
Oh,
area.
within a fenced area, so we have to do something. That's what we're asking.
Of the actual, of the location of the type of fence, what?
Well, we are limiting the location of the fence on the other side too.
Yeah,
So we probably should do a fence exhibit with this maybe?
maybe that can
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to figure out if the business owners, if we can come to, based on the location of this particular property, and then your property does it back to a similar business, i.e. Parkland Drive. You know, when you get up there, you're all kind of similar businesses, and you have storage yards, and even down, I guess, on Main Street. But you do have a restaurant that's in close proximity that we get a lot of traffic at. Sometimes they like to park by your business. So I guess what I'm trying to find out and see if you'd be agreeable to it is the actual material of the fence and what it looks like. I have no idea. It's a black chain link fence, more expensive than a stainless steel, you know, in color. And would that be, because part of this too, it maybe it doesn't solve the issues, but is making it aesthetically pleasing and not having some of the situation that you see in the exhibit that we're looking at. And I have no idea if that increased cost, I have no idea what it does to the, you know, the cost of a fence. I don't know if color changes it by much.
It's still cheaper than parking lot.
Yeah, but then again, is that, I mean, we're changing this ordinance is kind of a blanket template, not necessarily one specific to this property in regards to color or.
Well, I believe effectively it is this property, if I'm understanding correctly, Walter. When I look at the area this applies to, and I just had something, it was only, you know, between Main Street, 47, and Cross Street up to 30 in the B3 district, so is this the only property that meets that criteria?
Okay.
So so I'm again not saying you should or shouldn't, or whether the owners would agree to it, but I think if I'm understanding correctly, you want to make the fence requirements more specific.
Yes.
To potentially say black chain link with black slats or something like that.
Something, and I don't know if that would be too harsh, and I don't know if that makes it more expensive, but at least it gives peace of mind as they know what they expect if it gets through this process, that we know that if we drive down that road, we're not gonna go, oh my gosh, you know, because we've got something that is not something that would be necessarily agreeable had we known.
I mean, I'm concerned that it being 8 feet, that's pretty large in that, being that close up. So,
How tall is that door?
7.
probably 7 something.
Standard commercial usually 7.
Don't
Your
tell
house
me
is
to
6
stay
feet.
Do you want to have the belch? What are you, 6'8"?
6'7". I probably hit my head on the things that closers.
Yeah, 6'8" is the standard height for your house doors. So, a lot of times commercial is 7 feet.
I think that's what.
Is there something, Walter, about the age of the fence that the planning commission, about the gauge of the fence that the planning commission brought up? Larry was saying something to me about that.
Yeah, we discussed that, but
It was brought up, I was there.
yeah, it was 9 gauge is what was discussed.
And the purpose of that was to make sure nobody put up chicken wire.
Does this, to answer the question about, if they're no longer leasing it, does the fence come down? Isn't section 1 under the, in ordinance granting various zoning variations, the number 1 under section 1 variation granted, that the fences erected on property B shall be removed if the applicant is no longer the lesser of property B? Doesn't that mean if they're no longer leasing that area, then it does come down?
At whose cost? Is the responsibility on the owner or the lessee?
If it's a state's property, I can guarantee it, they're not gonna pay for it.
That's what, yeah, exactly.
And then I have a concern, I think if, I agree if you're gonna be using this to store stuff, you need to screen it, so that you need a taller fence. I get a little thinky about an 8-foot fence next to residential that can't have, technically they shouldn't have a 6-foot fence that close, they have to have a 6-foot fence in. Because they're right across the street from residential. I mean, an 8-foot fence that big, it's big, very big, so very industrial.
A 3-foot fence is like to keep a rabbit out,
Right.
No, I mean, our HOA is 48 inches, this is 36. I mean, that's not even, it's like a.
No, I understand, but I know a lot of people in my neighborhood who have corner lots, they have to either pull the 6-foot fence even with their property, with their house, or they have a 3-foot fence. So, not saying that that this president shouldn't have a variation because that's just going across, they should have that 6-foot variation, but, ideally, I wouldn't have no problem with it being the line. The one that we had,
This exhibit? No?
B2. I like, and a B2, I didn't have that in the boxes behind part of the structure, kind of in between. But that's cutting out their space to use.
I think it's less about that than it is about even the ability, if they were to pave it, they don't have the access, right? The lane access, so that's really not even an option.
Okay, so.
Well, if you were to move B1 back even further and then pave the other part, they're not losing anything because then they'd have this parking, they'd have the drive aisle, and they'd have the rest of it behind the fence. Anyways,
I do want to jump back to Trustee Levy's point about taking down the fence, just to be clear, so that would go towards the abandonment of the spot, like a potential abandonment of the special use. It wouldn't necessarily mean the use, even if the fence was gone, the use itself would not automatically go away at that point either.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear.
No,
But yes.
I understand the use would go away. I mean, you change the zoning, you change.
But yeah, then that could be a part of the fences down to now, are they starting to abandon it where, so much time passes, then perhaps the use does go away, and, on expiration.
I mean, so if there's another lease, if somebody else leases this property, but then they have to take that fence down, right? So.
come to us for
Either.
I guess, now I'm confused, that, I could be reading this totally wrong. It seems like the one that's granting the variation says it has to come down. But if we're amending the fence ordinance to make it an allowable use, is it even a variation anymore?
it's an 8-foot.
The 8-foot variation,
And the location.
yeah.
So we've got a few different things here, so I'm
We do.
push it forward. There's a couple things I think that we ought to consider on the special use ordinance itself, the conditions. Condition number 2 is that there should be no stacking of storage containers on top of each other. we should also add that, nor, destroying any containers on top of anything else.
Well, isn't the 8-foot maximum that,
That's the containers themselves shall not exceed 8 feet in height.
okay. I thought I saw something about staff that they don't.
Well, just say you won't put them on top of each other. It doesn't say you won't put a container on something else.
Okay,
You can stick it, put it above the fence.
okay,
And they are gonna be, they're gonna, and I was just saying for storage purposes, because they are gonna have to put them on the trailer to load them in and out.
so the implication under item number 3 under section 1, yeah, that reads that the container can't be larger than 8 feet, but if you're concerned if you put it on something else, then you're gonna be protruding about it, that's fine, okay?
Correct.
Number 4 says shipping in that same section.
Number 4 says what? Oh, yeah, that should be changed to storage.
What about the comment with respect to, if the lease is terminated, right, they decide, or a future tenant decides they're not going to, extend the lease with IDAC, who's responsible for taking the next step? We know IDAC ain't gonna do it.
Okay, I think that should be, my understanding is the condition of special use, so it should be on them, but in practice, yes, that could be an issue.
In practice, what?
In practice, it could be, you know, if they're out, and then you go after, I mean, it would go back to the owner.
That's right. IDAC doesn't do it.
So, yeah.
Which ordinance is that under?
So we
Is
want
it still
to
under the
add a
first one?
condition that if the special use is abandoned, then the owner of the property shall remove the fence.
I mean, they still ultimately should have respect, but yes, we clarify, but it should revert to them anyway, because of their
The
relationship.
renter, not the owner.
So who's, the special use is being granted to
The property.
which property?
Yeah, you got schools. So is it being issued to 2 owners, so essentially 2 pieces of property?
2 parcels.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
property was, it should be on both.
It would be, I mean,
It should be the building and the big lot.
yeah. I think the word
Less
is,
than.
it says,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they can't
just
get
it.
it. If they get permission.
yeah.
What did they get?
Do we-
Did they get permission from the landlord for the special use?
My recollection of the lease with IDAT is they have to comply with all local zoning requirements.
Well, I don't know that that answers the actual question.
Yeah. we don't
Do
know.
they-
And then you can put,
Do they need IDOT permission to seek the variance?
The property owner
Especially
is
whatever
gonna-
the property that IDOT owns. Understand that they less it, but it's a lessee. Does that give them the right to apply for whatever they're applying for?
I mean, it's hard to say without knowing what their agreement is with IDOT. I mean, typically, yes, when people apply to villages, like we allow, or like the typical standard would be unless you could apply, but it's with the owner, you know, assuming that they have the owner's blessing. I don't know that we've ever required like proof of the owner signing off or not. Yeah, I
What
don't
does our
know.
ordinance, what's our ordinance say about being able to apply for a variation or a special use of somebody else's home?
Does that open us up to litigation where we get sued if we have to remove the fence?
Well, I don't know, I mean, do we even have the authority to grant a special use on someone else's property that's not owned by the applicant?
yeah, they're not bringing
They
it
have-
forward.
Because I know when we file applications, we always have to have something that either has the owner's signature on it that says yes, or we have it as part of the contract that.
Typically, I mean, yeah, typically that would be, and I don't have an ordinance in front of me, typically that would be part of the ordinance or a part of the actual application when you're filling it out, would have something to that effect. I don't know.
I feel like I'm like this right now, not
That's
making
a level
headway.
of detail I'm not gonna I'm not gonna stick my head over the skis on that one.
Okay, so, what do you want to say, Brad?
No, I was gonna say, if the board does determine to table a road of proper motions tonight, I think that it's, maybe we're going to enter or appropriate to say that as far as the, court requires action, we're not going to pursue that at this time. We'll continue to keep that on hold, if you will.
Yes, while we work through this process.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that we need to find out is that even the ability for them to, for us to grant a special use on property that you don't own, that you lease. So to figure that out.
You have the ability, I think it's just a matter of having permission. Correct, in this particular case, like you can do that, it's just a matter of, in this case, did that happen?
And if it did, they'd have that in June, right?
Well, I would assume your code would require, have the requirement in there. I don't know what's on your application or what the village actually requires for that.
Okay. Either Scott or Dan or Charlie. And what do you tell us that if you've asked? Have you asked IDOT whether you can permission to?
Yeah, they said whatever the village, just like Walter said, reads in there, whatever your ordinances are, they'll go along with it.
And that might just be in their lease agreement.
And does your lease agreement state that?
Right, yeah, it does say it right in there.
Well, it says they'll follow the village ordinances, which is not the same thing as IDOT expressly giving them permission to see variances.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they won't, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know why they think I should say no way. I have no clue if they would say yes or no. I think we just need to verify.
Okay.
Once in the lease is adequate, great, but I don't think, we're all speculating right now. Probably not what we should do.
Okay. Okay.
So back to that fence, when you come down the street, your sight line is more in line with the fence on A, as Walter, the planning commission proposed. If you back it up, we measured that to the end of the building, it's 23 feet. And what that would hurt is the operation of the business driving a 43, 44, 45 foot truck with a box on it. You couldn't make those turns into the parking lot. If you back that up to B, there's no way that it's going to make an operation of business.
And I just want to make one other, it sounds like we're not going to be able to vote on this tonight based on this one particular item. But before we put table and cover that even, we just postpone, thank you, till next meeting. We need clarification, and I want to see if we can come to terms on a couple of things. So the way I read this, and some items that were brought up this evening were the height of the storage containers at 8 feet, hitting that fence of 8 feet. So what I'm hearing is you don't want to see anything higher than the fence line. Because there's an item in there, and I don't know which is the long tractor trailer thing. So go ahead, Charlie.
Not that we're going to have anything higher, but if you go down by Swim Shack, they have semis behind their fence that are probably 5 foot over that chain link fence. So take a ride down there. Just making a comparison.
No.
If you go down by Swim Shack, their semis are over the fence.
Okay.
And there's just the point.
But there's a semi there too.
I covered about 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, there's one.
Okay. So I guess the reason I say that is if your issue is the 8 foot height, because you think it's really might be too much, the only thing you'd be able to really see was maybe a 6 foot.
Well, I mean, 8 feet, I can see putting it at A, and I think we need to have 8 feet for it to function.
Okay.
But my concern is, I don't know if anybody really realizes how big that's going to be for that long of a stretch, because it is going to go. I understand it's a dead end, and if we do this, I think we should really let the neighbor do 6 feet, on their.
I think 3 feet is ridiculous, but that's just me. Especially at the end of a road that's not going anywhere,
I mean,
In the neighborhood, it's visibility, right? For a corner lot.
Yeah.
And so this is like if you're, so you can see some, or this is the road to nowhere.
But, I mean, I understand, you know, that the A is where they need to have it to function. I want businesses to function and everything in a village.
Mm-hmm.
But my concern is putting it right there with 8 feet. I don't know if people understand how big that's gonna feel, and how bulky that's gonna feel. And granted, I mean, the dead end corridor, it's gonna feel more, I don't know.
I think visually, what the screening is, you have to
And
weigh the benefit.
Right, and you actually need the screen, because, you know, if you grant this function, then you need to have that size fence, and you need to have the screen. I think if you would have to look at what type of fencing you might have to get in detail on, you know, a little bit more specific to what we allow and what we would not allow.
This is clearly a very unique situation. Would you all be agreeable with color, if the board made color suggestions on the chain link fence?
Required, that's not a suggestion.
Yeah. We're making a suggestion right now, and I want to know if they're agreeable to that suggestion before we go ahead and ask Walter to put it in there.
Well, I mean, you did such a good job picking on public works, but it was.
How about Ray? Sorry.
I don't. In all honesty, do you have an opinion about the fence color regarding the chain link? I don't know if blacks, you know, I don't know. We're trying to look for something that would.
Green or black,
Green, dark green.
Something dark.
With, bushes in the grass.
I think this.
Could we add that language to Walter?
Sure.
I think the thing with the green in here, and I get what you're saying, it looks more industrial for the business location that you all have. I would like something that hopefully looks a little bit more residential, even though it's a commercial use. I'm just saying, I think there was a black one here, but it had the terrible, the first picture.
That's just
The screening.
the screen.
Yeah. But I think overall, the black fence looks nice. I think the green sticks out a lot more than the black does, but I defer.
So when it's maintained, that looks good.
Okay.
So they're not complicated.
Yeah.
Regarding
We've complicated it. So
I
go
know.
ahead, Laura.
Yeah. But let's take an opportunity to take something that is a bit of a bone of contention and maybe do something with it, right? Because the park district building is more or less right across the street. I'm thinking, is there some material that we could ask them to make it out of that such that maybe a mural could be painted on there? Something that, you know, the school could get behind that's across the street, the kids could decorate it, right?
Yeah,
If we're
that kind
concerned
of.
with the look, and I don't think it's a decision now that needs to be made, but let's take something that might be an area of concern and make that a community rally.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, how do you do that with that changing material?
I don't know. It's just a thought, right? I mean, I've seen communities where they've had some things that have been, all right, there was a building that came down and the facade that was left on the building was a little ugly, so they commissioned a mural, you know, that went up on the side.
Yeah, I like that on a nice stone building. I don't know how we do it on the chain.
I don't know either, but
Still the entry to the residential.
Yeah, but I don't know, maybe that's something that, right? I threw out an idea that didn't have a solution, but it was just.
No, and I like that idea for the community somewhere.
Seeing if we could stick it.
I like that somewhere. I don't know if this is the perfect fit for that, but I like the suggestion. Okay, so Walter, let's get on the same page, make sure you have your notes, and just we'll verify while we're all sitting here. So we're going to look to see that the applicant has basically gone to IDAC, asked for the ability to ask for a variance.
And received.
Right. The language in here is item number 3, storage container shall not exceed 8 feet in height. I think trustee White's comment was noted that, you know, obviously we don't want them to then stack it. So whatever language you need, that they can't stack it on a flatbed, let's say, now the container hasn't exceeded 8 feet in height, but yet it's stored on something else, and in essence it does. So we need clarification on that language. The material of the fence. The gauge of the fence, so it's not a flimsy little fence. And can we put a color parameter on it? Pretty pleased with the cherry on top.
Do it.
I know, but I want them to agree. I want it.
Black.
Black it is.
Okay, we want to get that set black. Okay, one thing.
All right. Okay, so I just don't want you to come back in front of us and it not be more of a, you know, put together package where we're hashing back through this because it's a waste of everybody's.
Although, I think the gauge, if you put it on the ordinance part for the fence, and then we put on that for any other fences that might
Okay.
in that area.
Okay.
Now, it's, with the reference to the stacking of them, only with regard to storage, because they do have to put them on flatbeds.
Right. Right. But that's,
I think that's a limited time.
yeah.
Right, but that's why I said,
Okay.
because you made the comment you don't want to see it on the back of the flatbed.
No, well, I meant like a
Or storage,
trailer
or
sitting in the
storage.
lot. That, yeah, I don't know.
I just want to make sure that that's
Yeah.
important. They have to show that.
Yeah, we don't want to go through that again. Okay. I just want to get a pulse of the board on the fence line as the last item that seems to, you know, we'll vote on it when we vote on it as a package, but I'm sure the applicant wants to know how the board feels about and whether you're comfortable, you know, giving an opinion about fence location. I guess, are you willing to give me a show of hands on who's okay with that A as a location? 3, you have 4, and we got Heidelberg at 50/50, and we know that JB is not. Okay. Okay, so I think that's enough items to.
Thank you for the straw poll, I appreciate it.
You know, you like to kind of know where you stand, I think, that, right? And so I want to give you that. All right, if we can, Walter, do you feel like you got it all?
We'll find out in 2 weeks.
Walter? Okay, so we're going to bring this back. We're going to postpone on our agenda. We're going to postpone A, B, and C.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, motion to postpone?
Back to the table.
It's to postpone.
Postpone.
Until what's the next meeting?
So the next meeting,
The 19th?
9, A, B, and C
I like
on
that.
our agenda.
Under general business?
And general business.
Second.
Thank you. I got a first out of trustee White, and a second out of trustee Shomans. And Allison, do you have that motion?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee White,
Aye.
trustee Shomis,
Aye.
trustee Lenny, trustee Aaron,
Aye.
trustee Walter,
Aye.
trustee Bonner.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you for that. Okay. All right, let me just consolidate here real quick, and then we will move on to item D. I want to find it. Approving a final plan unit development for Sugar Grove Center Lot 17. Walter.
Okay, this is, I think, really different from most of the board. Sugar Grove Center is a plan development. The preliminary plan for the entire project was approved back in 2006, 2005. And one of the conditions is that as each building is added to the plan, built in accordance with the preliminary plan, that building or lot has to go through the final PUD process, the approval process. So that's why the site plan and building elevations are being presented to you, because we need to demonstrate that the plan and building elevations comply with the requirements of the PUD for certain road center. And then Patel is here tonight to answer any questions and just introduce himself to all of you. He's the owner of Lot 17 of the building. One thing I want to mention is the planning commission reviewed the proposal, found it consistent with the preliminary plan. Actually, the building footprint is a little bit smaller than what was approved for this site. The parking is already been constructed in the site, as is most of the landscaping and the outdoor illumination. So effectively what you're looking at is basically the site plan for the building, or the building footprint actually, and the building elevations.
So no variations.
No variations whatsoever.
Yay. Does the board have any questions or comments, or Walter or Mr. Patel? Okay. Welcome. And you're a current business owner in town, aren't you?
No, actually, I'm an architect
Oh, okay.
representing my client, Sugar Grove Real Estate LLC.
Okay.
And the owner of the land is here as well. If you have any questions related to the business aspect.
But he's a business owner. Right?
Yes, he is a business owner. Exactly.
In Sugar Grove currently.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you for doing, bringing this in front of us and buying that lot and finishing out that shopping center. It's exciting to this board to see some growth in town. Looks like this is pretty clear cut. I don't know, like I said, if there's any board members that have any questions specifically. We're looking at the packet. I know there was some mention you probably can't disclose what businesses are coming unless you have signed contracts and you know they're coming, but is this fully occupied?
It's going to be. Only one or two spaces is going to be vacant.
Only one or two when it's done?
We are putting separate, we going to move separate.
Yes.
Then Approximate Burrito is a franchise from the New Jersey. Then we approved for Cold Strong Creamery. Then we are trying to buy open up bar, high-end bar with the dairy.
High-end bar. Is that what's going on the end with the outdoor seating?
Yes.
Is there outdoor seating on both sides of the building? Is that what's proposed? And that's accessible to the end units on each side? Do we have the okay from Jewel as far as having additional serving of alcohol? I thought I had. Do they have any rights to the rest of that property as far as liquor store?
Their restriction, I cannot open the liquor store.
A liquor store.
Oh, liquor store.
But you can have a restaurant that serves alcohol?
Yes.
Okay.
Volume is okay.
Just point out, a liquor license would be a totally separate action.
Yes. Yeah, that's to be assumed, but I'm envisioning growth with 2 potential restaurants per the recent restaurant survey, and all the comments on people wanting outdoor seating and places for.
He's checking off a lot of boxes. Checking off a lot of boxes.
Making sure we.
Walter, I can't remember if you already told me the answer to this or not. I know I had asked earlier that if they believe in the future they may be seeking a liquor license that would allow for outdoor seating. And I don't remember, are there any specific requirements in our code for the fencing or anything in that patio space for a liquor license that may be different than the regular outdoor dining? If you don't know the answer tonight, I would just suggest to you and sir that you might want to check that. I'm not saying there is, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's, if you're using it for that purpose, you have to have a different height fence, or the ingress and egress may have to be specific.
Sure.
I think they see you build this and then come for a liquor license and say, you got to tear that out, put a new,
Sure.
new thing out.
Very good.
Quick question, just because I live in the neighborhood behind and I'm really excited about this. Are you gonna have bike racks at all? Because I think there's a lot of people coming.
We haven't planned for them, but certainly we can add some bike racks. That's no problem.
I agree. I think especially if you're adding the one business that, with all the children that live in the nearby neighboring community or neighborhood, that would be a hot spot for sure.
Can we have outdoor music at the,
I'm sure you don't want our laundry list of suggestions. That's not why they're here. But we have plenty. Okay. Does anyone have any additional comments or questions?
I just like to say we look forward to having you doing this, and if there's something else that you plan on doing there that you need any help with, please come to us. And, I like that it's a freestanding building. I like that it's not in line to year, it's just a continuation. I think that's it's going to add to the whole flavor of it. I like that a lot.
I'm sorry, Jamie, I was talking over that. Can you repeat that?
No.
Yes, listen to the recording.
Make a comment about the burrito joint coming in.
I'm just saying, it's going to be forward to this. I like the building.
You know, I love it. I just want to tag team him as well and welcome, you know, this business too. Thank you for already being a business owner in town. We appreciate that and we patronize your business. But thank you for doing this. We know that you will be highly successful. We know that. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the ordinance approving a final plan unit development for Sugar Grove Center, Lot 17?
I'll make that.
Second.
We got a first out of Trustee Lindy and a second out of Trustee Garrett. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee Lindy? Aye. Trustee Herron?
Aye.
Trustee Bonner? Trustee Shomas?
Aye.
Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Trustee White?
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you.
Good luck.
Likely so. Okay, next up is an ordinance amending the Village of Sugar Grove Code of Ordinances regarding meetings, rules of order and procedure, village president. Is this a Allison?
Yes, it is.
So, a couple meetings ago, we discussed the emergency powers ordinance that came up when COVID was first around and the declaration was made. We addressed those concerns with adding a meeting immediately or as soon as possible to get a quorum following the declaration. So that addressed the concerns of the scope of the presidential powers for that particular concern. The next part was how the president pro tem or temporary chairman is elected within the village. And it was an election. Many board members thought that it was just the longest serving trustee, which is also common in other villages. So we went back after your discussion and we have drafted an amendment to have the temporary or the president pro tem be the longest serving trustee. And that's, that language is in there, as well as adding the meeting that's now in place. I'm sorry. The other part was talking about line of succession during emergencies. And that was something that there is a state statute that provides for municipalities to do that. We had not done that. So the second part, which is about that, in E, we provide a method for doing that. And then F actually goes ahead and says how it's going to be done, who it is going to be. So we've addressed the emergency line of succession, we've addressed your day-to-day president pro tem or temporary chairman, and we've addressed that executive powers that happen after a declaration is made. So there's the board report is the same, but one's just how it's going to be done and one's doing the line of succession.
So if I remember correctly, it's longest serving, it's elected at the same time, it's highest vote. If it's same election, same number of votes, it's a lot.
Yeah, and one other, I guess, kind of point of clarification is just because the statute requires that there be an election for it, and the board will change. If we have it in there that it would be done every 2 years by resolution, you just update in accordance with that same formula that's in your ordinance. So you make the same calculation, and then every 2 years when the new board is sat, you would redo this resolution. And in the case if you miss a resolution and an emergency happened, you would just default, your election would default back to the formula.
Excellent. A lot of red line in here, thank you. I know that was a lot of work to get it done and appreciate it, but I think there's now no questions as to how we proceed. Everybody good with that? Do you have any questions for Allison or Brent? Okay, can I get a motion to amend the Village of Sugar Grove Code of Ordinances regarding meetings, rules of order, procedure, and village precedent?
So moved.
First out of trustee Heron.
Second.
Second out of trustee Shomas. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee Heron.
Aye.
Trustee Shomas.
Aye.
Trustee White.
Aye.
Trustee Walter.
Aye.
Trustee Lendy. Aye. Trustee Bond.
Excellent, motion passes. Okay, and then as Allison stated, item number F, the resolution. If you saw that in the packet, that's just the spelling out as our board sits today. On page, I don't even know the last page of this part of the packet.
I'm sorry, there are page numbers.
That's okay, that's okay. The page that is the last page of this packet, part of the packet. That's what it will be. So if there are any questions, comments, get your gavel ready. Can I get a motion to approve item F, the resolution adopting an emergency interim succession plan electing president pro tem and temporary chairman?
As stated.
First out of trustee Shomas. Second out of trustee Walter. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Shomas.
Aye.
Trustee Walter.
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie.
Aye.
Trustee Lendy. Aye. Trustee White.
Aye.
Trustee Heron.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to public comment. Any public comments? This is our last public comment of the evening. So if there's any comments regarding anything on our agenda or anything in general, please. Mr. Wolf?
Do we need to set the time? We
No.
traditionally do it
You're
for
fine.
the time.
I know, you're fine.
From time to time, you had on your wish list that you would like to have a metro station in Sugar Grove, if I'm correct. The trouble is, Kendall County wants one also. And they actually work hard to accomplish it. Go to Springfield and lobby Springfield, they lobby Washington. I see it in the paper all the time, where they're working to have it accomplished for Kendall County. And they realize the power of working with their politicians. Sugar Grove, not so much. But the railroad, when they built the bridge over Orchard Road, built it for a second set of tracks. I don't know if you're aware of that. And I was told the reason they built it for a second track is so a rail line could come out to Sugar Grove, a possibility, and a metro station there. So one of the big cost things is the bridge has already been built to handle a rail line. But it's going to take a lot of effort on village part to work with Washington, your representative in Washington, and your state representatives. One way I would suggest is you invite them to next year's carnival as kind of a let's get to know you for Laura Underwood and your state representatives. It doesn't have to be a big political thing, but it could be just we'd like you to meet our citizens of the village and get to know us, and we'd like to get to know you. Now, beyond that, I think you have to have some real active participation in the state and federal your elected officials. Sometimes that's not real popular because Underwood happens to be a Democrat, and it's not too popular in some parts of Lee County. But there's a bill in Congress that probably could have money for this metro station and the railroad line that has to come out from Aurora, because that's going to take $2 million. So it would take some work to talk to these people and get to know them and kind of work with them, whether they're equally Democrat or Republican, because you're going to need the state and the federal government to make this happen. I think it could happen, you know, if you work it. You know, if you really want to spend the time and energy to make it happen. But it's, you know, it's going to be a chore to do it, but it could be done. Because if Kendall County had an inside track, they'd already have it, you know, and for some reason they don't have it. So the reason they don't have it is because maybe nobody wants to give it to them, and they're waiting for it to grow. I don't know. But you need to talk to some people that know, and the only people I know are Democrats. But you might want to call Beth Penesis sometime. She lives in St. Charles. She worked quite a few years in Springfield, and she knows everybody down there. I haven't talked to her in a couple of years. Last I talked to her, she was going to take a job north of Elgin in some town. I forget which one she said now. But she knows a lot of people. But you gotta have an organization. You know, Democrats and Republicans working together to make this happen. You know, it's going to take some time. But I think it could happen. But if you want Beth's phone number, I have it. You know, I know her well. She was the airport manager for a few years, and she used to call me up between meetings and ask me to go out for coffee with her. We used to go to the village library. She wanted to get away from the office and see a friendly face. She wasn't too well accepted at the office, at the airport place, as an airport manager. She came from Springfield. She was a Democrat. Maybe because she was a woman, I don't know. But she had a hard time there. But she called me up on a regular basis to talk about the airport. And I guess I was the friendly face. I don't know why she called me. She used to call me. So I know her. And, you know, but she's a Democrat.
You know a lot. Well, I said you know a lot of them. Thank you for that. And when I get to my president report, maybe it'll enlighten you a little bit, but, you know, there's still lots of work to be done.
Okay,
Thank you, Jim.
Let me take time.
Of course. Any other public comments at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll close that section. Discussion item, zoning ordinance amendment, contractor's yard, additional principal structure. Walter.
Village staff is recommending modifying the criteria for contractors' yards. Specifically, we want to make it possible for this type of use to have more than one principal building on the lot. We have, historically, we've been approached by a number of industrial property owners up and down Heartland Drive, wanting to add another building onto their property, and you know, they all talk about facilities that are much larger than our maximum size for an accessory structure. And historically, you know, we've turned them away because they, you know, what they want to do is comply with the zoning regulations. But we have a situation with a business in town that desperately needs to build a building, basically a storage building that would be accessory to their office, small office building that's on the property. And the problem with the definitions is the principal, in this case, the principal building would be smaller than the accessory building. So by definition, it's not allowed. Yet the benefit of allowing this business to do what they're asking to do is immense, because it will clean up the property, greatly improve the appearance of that portion of the neighborhood. And rather than tinker with definitions, which I think are perfectly fine, we're recommending just for contractors' yard use, allowing that use to have more than one principal building on the lot. And that's the purpose of that's the scope of the proposed amendment.
Any question?
More than one use, and the building size doesn't have to, right?
No, it's a single use. It would be the contractor's yard, but they would have multiple buildings on the property. Right now, the zoning ordinance only allows one building on the lot, or one principal building, I'm sorry. This will allow them to have more than one principal building.
I think it sounds like a good idea to clean it up. Have that stuff, have a place to put stuff, get it out of just sit in the yard. I like the sound of that.
In the past, with the instances we've had on Heartland Drive, we've attempted to get the owner of the building to just make an addition to the existing structure. But depending on the structure, you have things like loading dock doors and basic circulation behind the building that would be compromised. And so, you know, just building an addition isn't the answer for a lot of people. But, you know, a separate building is probably the better solution in some cases. And as I said, the difficulty we've had is to keep up against the definitions for principal and accessory buildings, and we can't get around that. So we're proposing this amendment just for this one type of use.
Is in the definition, so if it's a principal building, you're saying it has to be at least 1,200 square feet. So that second one, you're telling them it has to be at least that big. Under A, principal building, not less than 1,200 square feet floor area, more than one principal structure. So both principal structures, or you're not limiting the number of principal structures either. They can have as many as they want up there, but they all have to be more than 1,200 square feet.
Yes. It still has to comply with all the other zoning requirements.
A couple of questions. Why do you think our ordinance is like this in the first place?
Given the age of the ordinance, I'm going to surmise that it was the trend at the time. Allowing only one principal building on a lot is fairly typical in 1970s Arizona ordinances. And, maybe at one time it made sense, maybe in particular communities there was a problem, and, it just got multiplied as everybody copied everybody's ordinances. I'm not, as I said, we're only recommending this change for the specific reasons. We're not looking at a general change to the zoning ordinance that would be too much upheaval to do that. But with this particular use, and because of the number of occurrences we had with the conflicts with the zoning regulations, this may be a simple solution for these folks.
Are there any, we need any separation requirements or
That's already in the code, so that would still apply.
More than one building has to be, okay, are there any current accessory uses that wouldn't be allowed, that they would be able to bypass by calling it principal structure?
Well, accessory use.
I guess I would just ask before the next meeting, kind of go through that, to see is there something in there that we're unexpectedly allowing, that we wouldn't allow as an accessory use, that we would now allow as a principal structure, as long as we made it big enough.
Right.
That's my only concern.
Okay. Yeah, I think can do. I think we try to vet this as much as we can, just because it's something different.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, it just removes. Well, I guess it doesn't necessarily remove accessory structures. Just have to have the 1,200.
Right.
What's with the public vehicle? What's that?
I can't explain that. That was, for some reason, that was of critical importance to the planning commission. I'm still at a loss to explain why.
Okay, what's a public vehicle? Is that one that's owned by a municipality or fire department or a public vehicle? I own license for use on the street.
Well, since you brought it up, staff doesn't recommend that change.
Well, I mean, how do we tell somebody that violated that section of the and do we care about that if it's in the yard? If it's a store? Okay. Does the contractor's yard have to be fenced?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then do we care about that one?
I mean, is taking out public, it would be saying no vehicle. Do they put public in there because?
Like they would store their work trucks,
Yeah.
and so that's a private, or it's a business.
Well, that's,
I don't know, we're speculating, trying to figure this out, we don't know we don't have any way to figure it.
I suppose it prevents it from just becoming a place to store scrap iron, If you've got an old bulldozer or something, like, say that's sitting out in the field out here.
Well, and that is the one, I guess we gotta get more clarification. We can't define it until we know what the intent is. It's kind of hard to say.
No, I think in any case, regardless, it needs to be changed, the words of it. The way we read it, I'm reading it as no public vehicle, like the village can't have their vehicles there, but I don't think that necessarily, like, the people, it would have, but I mean.
They do it every night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, if they kind of allow business vehicles to remain, I think you just say business, only business vehicles may remain over X amount of days.
I could see maybe no not operable vehicle or equipment.
Exactly.
I guess we just need clarification, Walter, on what their recommendation is with that. And then, bring that back.
So a contractor's yard is defined as what?
It's a place where a contractor keeps their vehicles and materials and supplies. Usually it's out of doors. But we have a number of them that occupy buildings that you carry inside. There's many places we can't inside.
So construction materials, lumber, piping, plumbers,
Coils of cable, yeah.
Yes, you may.
Walter, I may be wrong on this, I'm trying to remember our previous conversations, is the issue, I'm trying to compare the, focusing on the principal building versus an accessory building. And I don't know if that adds more, if you can enlighten us, and that would help at least me understand if there's a problem that, could a contractor's yard have an accessory building currently?
Yeah.
But the problem is that sometimes
They're limited to the size.
it has to be less than the principal building in size.
Well, it actually has to be less than 1,500. I think it's 1,000 square feet.
So is that the issue, not that they can't have more than one building? The issue is that if they have their office that's 1,500 square feet, which may be more than enough, and they say, I want to have another building to put equipment in, they can't have it because that would be an accessory building to the primary one. Is that what we're working around, or not working around it?
Because of the size, it no longer satisfies the definition of an accessory structure. That's why we're looking at allowing more than one principal building on the property.
Because in this case, the principal building, the exterior storage is going to be larger than the principal building.
Right.
That's why I just want to make sure it's an accessory structure.
Right.
We wouldn't really allow.
No, principal.
As a principal. Why are we terming it a principal structure?
That makes sense.
So are we
Anything else?
asking them to send it back to the plan commission for clarification on public, or we just want to change it to non-applicable vehicles?
Oh, yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's a screened area, not that we want to turn it into a junkyard.
Well, that's, I think, the intent of that,
Yeah.
not let the stuff just sit there.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, a major piece of equipment being repaired and then want to store it for a period of time, but we don't want to create situations where, refer to a bulldozer, but, bulldozer tracks can be expensive, right? They might want to sit it up there, and we don't want to sit there for 3, 4, 5 years.
You think the guy with the bulldozer in the field wants to speak?
I'm fixing my drainage problems, and your drainage problem off the ends of all the streets. That's what I've been trying to do.
I was not implying that.
No, I really wonder.
You didn't even know. That's, I think, the funny part in the room is so.
Okay, you said another vehicle. They got an old 56 Chevy that they're going to get around and fixing.
He had
We
no
don't want
idea.
it sitting up on blocks.
Jamie did.
Was there something else again?
Huh?
Is there something else?
I have a question on this stuff.
Hey, would you
This
leave the meeting?
Oh, I do.
Will you leave the meeting?
No.
Okay.
You should ask her.
I'm going to say, I will let you speak when you pass your public comment time. Please go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
As far as the industrial, I've been approached, because I have quite a few buildings there, about putting an outside cold storage. In other words, a 3-sided building. So, that's one of the problems we found in the place. I mean, they were looking at it. So the thing is, some of them have, like Swenson, they rack them now, because these units they spread this B-juice, and they're all computerized, and it goes off of the GI, GPS, and everything else. And they can't afford to have them set there. They haven't set there, but now they rack them with vinyl wrap at the tune of about 4,000 units. Right now they're at six of them at one time, they're at 12. So those units, I'm They probably haven't approached you guys or anything else, but that was one of the things on their end.
So you have a tenant? You have a tenant, so I understand. you have a
Yes,
tenant
Swanson, yes.
Okay.
At 590. Their situation is that those are all computerized. You see white, you see backed up to this fence here, that white fence on your picture right here.
Mm-hmm. Is that that?
To the, this side of it, you see some white things sticking above the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 6-foot fences, so you. But anyway, those things are vinyl wrap because of the computers in the machinery. And as more and more stuff goes computerized, you're going to see where they like to have something to keep it out of the snow, the rain. They, you know, and the fire department says, you know, with the sprinkler system, you have one side open or leave. You know, as far as sprinklers, that's what I'm trying to get at. But the size of the buildings are the question. Because if they have a 5,000 square foot building, they can only put up 1,000 square feet. Well, okay, even if they have 10,000 square foot building, it don't matter. It's 1,000. They need the ability, and that's why I hope you consider what I call cold outside storage. Have 3 walls, roof, etc., and that's how it's set up. I'm not saying they're going to be in tomorrow morning, but all I'm asking is that's one thing I know that is a pain.
Yeah. Well, Walter, what I would ask is, I know that you have a lot of things, so maybe Danny can look into this. I know. So bear with me when I say this. It's not like I want tomorrow. But in regards to what he's saying, how many businesses do we have that have an accessory structure on their lot that maybe their primary building is so large and they're allowed this 1,000 square feet could benefit from a change in the ordinance and the size, and whether it affects enough or if we just deal on a one-time basis. I'm just curious. A lot of these ordinances were written a long time ago. Times are changing. If this is something that you can give her to kind of look into, Danny, and see what she's able to come back with. But as we go down this road, we're finding a lot of things. And so, you know, we talked about there's not one-stop shop and it doesn't all work for everyone. But if we can kind of consolidate and fix as we move along, certainly an ordinance that would benefit another business, we can do that. So I'd be curious on that.
When it becomes a primary structure, it then has to comply with the materials and everything else. That's
that is true. I'm not sure that we have any material requirements in the industrial park, though.
well, it's right that one.
Yeah.
So let me go back to item C. Do we even need item C?
Well, we don't want stuff to just sit out there.
Yeah, but on-site implies in the storage yard, in the.
Inoperable stuff. In other words, we had, and I was, it could be anything that just sits out there, just sits and rusts.
So is that supposed to be outside of the fenced area? Is that, I mean, I guess we still don't know what their intent was.
If you don't care what's behind the fence, then we don't need it.
Right.
If you don't care what's behind the fence.
Well, if you can't see what's behind the fence.
Well, but then you still got issues with health. If you have stuff that's sitting out there, rats and stuff living in it.
I can't hear you, I'm
There is
sorry.
one hydraulic.
Well, that's,
Stuff, you know, if it's a dilapidated car or a vehicle that's not really
I know some contractors here that I drive past have now kind of almost become a storage facility for old boats and old cars. And they have their equipment there, but next to it, they've also accumulated a bunch of just junk, really.
Okay.
So, I think I agree with you that it should, if it's operatable, it should go operated.
Okay. I'm fine with that. Dan, public comment is passed. Okay.
I only said because it might have been germane discussion.
He's always got something germane. He's been here for how many years? He's gonna chime in on everything. We'll get him a seat at the table.
His concern, I can almost tell you what it's going to be, is he's worried that the accessory structure, if we do the accessory structure the way it's written, that the cold storage facility, just the 3 walls and roof, will now fall underneath that accessory structure, or underneath the primary structure. Yes. So I noticed this, and I kind of figured it out. But yeah. So he's worried that if the primary structure is required to follow all the rules, that more than 1,000 square foot primary structure would not qualify. So that was his concern. Right?
Well,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And I think so. What we're trying to do is this is for a specific property. This is for a specific property.
Correct.
And what I asked Walter to do to see how many businesses exist in the village where the size is an issue for them for growth purposes, but they have the room to do it. And so Danny will look into that, and then we can look at our ordinance and see, across the board, if we amended our ordinance to be a little bit more amenable to more businesses, does that affect somebody in a way that we don't then want, right? So that's kind of the challenge that we have. Okay. This is clear as mud. Do you have a direction? I want to make sure that you have the direction because I feel like it's not as clear in my head. Can we go back to the number?
Right now, I understand what I got to do.
Okay. And item C, are we just removing the word public?
I think we're going to replace public and put it inoperable
Okay.
vehicles or equipment. Is what I would suggest.
Yeah, that's
How does that strike you?
Any reason why not?
Well, it would be easier to enforce inoperable vehicle than equipment.
My concern is it's the same, you get the same result.
And then you go on the definition of vehicle.
Well, what's the definition of equipment? I mean, they're a particular company, they have pumps, so,
Yeah.
Heavy machinery?
Anything with a,
Well, it was Trustee Bonnie's point to where there's potentially boats and all kinds of other stuff. You're got a business and RVs. Yeah. What are the limitations as to
Well, I guess
vehicles? Vehicles pertaining to
how
that
does this slow
particular
them down?
business.
I don't think they can.
yeah, I mean, an RV that's operable, I want to store it there for the off-season.
Actually, they can, because it says it can't be stored in a height greater than the height of the screen. So it has to be enclosed.
Okay. So are you saying it's sent it back from DDG? Walter?
Let me clarify. So the issue C, no public vehicle, that was generated by the plan commission because they had this whole ordinance in front of them.
Yes.
The issue staff is trying to deal with only refers to A. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the board could move forward on the change to A and not make the change to C and go back to the plan commission and say, we're not sure what you intended, but these are some of the things we're concerned about. What do you want to do with it? Whether it's a vehicle or not, old equipment, does that make any sense or not really?
Yeah.
So are you saying, so would we be able to move forward with the zoning ordinance amendment for the next meeting to incorporate A?
I believe so.
To incorporate A. So
Once you can address those,
and then it goes back to the plan commission, they'll deal with that.
with regard to C.
Yes.
But as long as you can address part with regard to A.
As with the principal, dealing with the word principal. Okay? Clear, very clear. Is everybody on the same page with that?
Should it be just principal building instead of structure? Because we have principal building in the
Yeah.
yeah. and then it's down to 11,415 is the building again. So perhaps structure should be changed to building, in red. Just for consistency.
Agreed.
Good catch.
You read my notes.
All was that?
Anything else additional?
I didn't read anything.
Hearing none. Walter, if you can make those changes, bring it back for next meeting under general business.
Will do.
Thank you. Staff reports. First up, Brent.
The only thing I wanted to touch on was that we did have a couple meetings with the architects on the future village hall space need. One last week, focused on community development. One today, focused on finance, administration, and economic development. I think overall they were lengthy meetings, and essentially we went through current and near future projections as far as space needs, everything from, board facilities, boardroom, office, staff needs, restroom, kitchen, break room, conference rooms, you name it, anything you see in the building, we talked about. So I think our next meeting, 15th?
Yes.
They're going to take the information from the last two meetings, consolidate that, and come back at that meeting and say, okay, based on that, this is the framework for the amount of space we would need in the building. So obviously some conversation there to see if, once you pull it all together, it still seems to make sense. So short version is we had a couple of good meetings, we're on track. Hopefully we're, I can't remember the deadline, but still 6-8 weeks off, I want to say from memory, for the kind of final, this is the size building they would recommend the village to build. We have talked about trying to be conservative in the space as part of initial construction, but have the building designed in such a way that it would accommodate an expansion in the future.
Looks good. Very good. Any questions for Brent? Okay. Hearing none. Matt?
Just a quick update. Not sure if everyone's going to be surprised, but the ARPA funds we obviously received the funds, but all the reporting and everything is now delayed. So not a big thing. We got the money. However, they don't have a portal set up. They don't have any reporting template set up. They've nothing created it. So our initial reporting period was supposed to be due October 31st for September. All period from March 3rd until September 30th. That's now been delayed actually until April 30th of 2022. We don't know if they've extended the reporting period, so we don't know if it's been extended from September 30th now to a different time, but they're not due until April 30th of 2022 now for the first reporting period, because there's nothing created yet as far as how to. There's guidelines on what they're going to require, but there's no actual portal or template.
Great.
So does that freeze that money up? Or are we still allowed to use the money? We just have to.
All the money's allowed to be. Okay. It's just depending on what the reporting period is going to be, because this is going to go through December 24. It was just our first reporting period was September 30th, which municipality-wise didn't make much sense considering people could still apply for that money up until September 30th. So some people may not even have their money by the time that they would have to report the first time. So I'm not surprised on that. There, as of September 30th, which was the deadline, there was, I think, somebody said like 31 communities either declined or didn't do their portal submission. Now, when you say that, that means some people were like 50 population. So, not a huge amount of money, but that money will be redistributed back to the people who did do it. We're joking around saying probably $10. But that's where we're at. Nothing really new. We should have a further update at the next meeting on what we have for reimbursement through our period of September 30th from either COVID expenses, payroll, or revenue replacement. So that's the next.
Excellent. Just a quick question, I haven't even asked Brent this in a while, but update on your part-time employee that we're replacing?
So we haven't reposted for that position. We wanted to get the full-time position up in training. He's currently doing utility billing as part of the accounting manager position. We also wanted to see amount of work, having a part-timer versus that person doing it. So it has not been reposted yet, and also we don't really have anybody to fully train the new person that understands the system enough that we would not. I don't want to train a new person on something we're not 100% on knowing first.
Okay.
Still on hold. We're doing okay, I would say. I don't think we're having a huge issue. I think the biggest issue is coverage. I don't think it's job duties. I think it's just the coverage of having people here. But I don't think actual job duties is being an issue.
Coverage in the sense of somebody to be able to be there.
Yeah, since we only have one part-time and one full-time, the part-time only works 2, maybe 3 days a week. So if there's any type of time where the full-time person needs to be off, it's that coverage for the window. So I think that is a bigger concern more than the actual utility billing process.
Okay.
You're not disclosures.
I'm a big help. I go, if you want to drop something off, I can put it on the right desk. Yeah, they don't want me going into the system looking at something like that.
So it's going okay. It's a big help just having a full-timer hired and now being able to just do that. But actual utility billing process is not an issue for me right now.
Okay.
More it's just coverage, so we're okay getting by without having that person here for now. I think eventually it'll happen, but until Brett can become fully versed in doing the utility billing process, I don't think I want to have somebody else hired when we're all trying to learn it as much as that person will be learning it. It'll be a very confusing process.
Got it. Any questions for Matt?
Yeah, I got one.
Fine.
The police pension board should be due, when is the next one was held? Usually the first week of October?
The next meeting is next Friday.
Okay. Would you mind, next time your staff report giving an update as far as what's going on?
Sure.
Yeah, that's not a leading question. I've lost track of what's been going on there. I no longer serve, so I'm just interested.
Yep.
Walter?
Well, obviously, everybody knows by now, 2020 is open for business at long last. And the other thing I have to report is we're having a pre-construction meeting with Rosewood tomorrow, so probably see some construction activity out there next week.
Excellent. That's very good news. Moving along. How's Deep Cove coming along?
Actually, they're right on schedule.
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
They already moved in their equipment, or at least the equipment that they need in order to make the transition. So that's all sitting in the building. Yeah.
That's great.
Looks like they're going to make it.
That's great news. Does anybody have any questions for Walter? No? Oh, all right. Thank you, Walter. Chief?
Just on September 23rd, we had representatives Jeff Piper and Keith Wheeler out here for a couple hours. And they were successful then during the 2-hour window. A little bit over 214 pounds of prescription drugs returned in. So it's a huge amount for this area. We're going to be doing it again October 23rd, I believe. October 23rd is the National Prescription Drug Take Day. And we'll probably collect, we'll see how much we collect. We typically collect in the upper 100s to 200 each time we get to, and then we'll combine them all, and the balance will go their way to a warehouse in Chicago for construction at a different location. So, for those that are Purdue fans, Purdue finished number 1 at the Invitational this weekend. Actually on Monday at the Charles Farms. so, there's only about 60 cars, typically throughout that, or most of the participants in this lady. People that were either relatives or golf so.
So not a big turnout and stuff.
Yeah, weather-wise, I think just the way that we can look and that were, that, I'm not sure they had a couple days to take some cover, but nothing that interfered with the tournaments. Other than that, this past Saturday, we had 3 officers take their written exam, promotional exam for sergeant, so the process continues. Next Tuesday will be the formal interviews, and then we'll move forward from there. Our lateral entry list, our lateral entry applications are due in by October 15th, so today we have 0 so far turned in, which isn't looking really good. It's pretty shocking that we don't have that single applicant as of now. The initial eligibility list was one that for people that don't have, I should say, you can apply for the position even if you're under 2 years, you just didn't qualify under the lateral road map. But if you have less than 2 years, you can apply for this one. So hopefully we can find somebody either lane so that we're not pushed out to 2023 or hiring another officer. So it's not looking really good yet, but hopefully something will turn on the 15th of the lateral entries coming.
Wow. Well, that's disappointing. Where are all your friends?
Applying to Aurora. We're having the same problems. It's a nationwide. Well, they're burning up so many departments right now. In our area is over 20, so looking through my arrows.
Is there something more, in your opinion, that we could be doing on the recruiting side?
You know what, I think we do a really good job. We're not actively going out to colleges, just because those are people that have not gone through the police academy. We're really targeting for this time around someone that's been through the police academy, but we may be forced down the other lane. But again, get that person ready and on the road, we're looking in 2023 timeframe. We're posting a lot of overtime, open spots. There's 40 hours a week that aren't being covered right now. It's very good their goals. It's going to take a toll on the officers, sustain it so long. So the sooner we get someone hired, the more they can hire. There's, it's just competition, and guys are not leaving here, so it's not really about the money. It's obviously not about management, so.
We never doubted that.
but so we push, we're going to continue to push, those in law enforcement looking to maybe jump from another community to here, so.
Well, keep us posted. We hope for the best. I can think of one officer that you have, but I'm like, and I don't know the particulars, but that was a part-timer to go to full-time, but I don't know what the requirements are with that. So that would be a good fit for us, I think.
Yeah, typically the part-timers have to go through the initial officer eligibility list, the lateral entries for someone that's already full-time certified. Unless they're an officer elsewhere, the part-timers go to a part-time academy. Then you can hire them on. They don't go to the full 16 weeks or whatever it is, 17 weeks now. At the academy, they can go to a 2-week academy to get the full-time status. Because they've already gone 2 weeks, technically about 10 weeks on over a 10-month period.
So is that person, so is it 2 more weeks of school?
For it to move from yes, there's a program in Illinois that allows you to go beyond your part-time academy experience and attend a 2-week class to get your full-time status. But unfortunately, they have that academy now almost by St. Louis at the river, and it hasn't had enough students to push any of the classes forward. So it's
Wow. Wow.
For whatever it's worth, I know it's a completely different set of circumstances. At we're hiring technical people. There's insane challenges trying to find good people there too. We had openings for, experience level individuals 12 to 18 months. And we finally now basically just resorted to going after colleges, junior level people, kind of biting the bullet and realizing that had we gone after those people 18 months ago, they'd be fully up to speed and ready to go now, versus still not having anybody. I only say that because, at some point in time, I'm just thinking out loud. It wouldn't make any more sense that, okay, yes, no one's able to find good, experienced people. And can we as a village support those decisions a little bit better for you? And, going toward the fresh out by, I don't know if it means, supporting training or whatever it would be for that individual coming aboard. Just throwing ideas out there at this point in time.
Tony?
Just want to report that the exterior of the Public Works building has been painted and it's looking good. And it's starting on the interior. It's blue light.
I'm by tomorrow.
And it's all there at this time.
That's it. Any questions for Tony? That. Whatever happened with the road, the road program, when the truck came through the village? Maybe my brain.
CMAP pavement now?
Yes.
The truck came through the village.
And we have nothing to report from them?
We're working with CMAP and the consultant to review the draft that'll bring forward for a village board presentation. Probably next month, November.
Okay. Look forward to that. Yeah. You guys have a lot going on.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of studies. Michelle, you got a lot going on for us, so appreciate it. Anyone have any questions? I'm sorry. All right, thank you. Trustee reports. Trustee Shomas?
Yeah. Hang on. Pull my notes up. I think I reported last time regarding Forest Reserve Commission. I did attend the Aurora Area Convention Center meeting on September 23rd. I was approved as our official member representative at that meeting. Thank you very much, and you're welcome at the same time. Meeting discussion points resolved around financial reports, staff report updates, some information about grant money coming in and when it would be reflected. I posed the question with respect to business. So very often, if you guys aren't aware, so that the role of this organization in promoting civic growth, business growth, is to support big functions that go on in the west suburbs, the Aurora area. And so I posed a question toward the end of the meeting about, what businesses have we been turning away? There was some notes there about some big baseball tournaments that we had brought in, but I kind of wanted to know what was lacking. And they basically included that, kind of what is still missing in the various municipalities that feed into it, is a indoor ice rink, convention space, because we really can't handle an event bigger than about 100 people currently, indoor swimming, or indoor sports for the winter season, of course more hotels. Ultimately, as they said, what really hit down those type of opportunities pretty hard with the building investment on at St. Charles, and there really hasn't been anything back for that area. So there was a lot of discussion that kind of came around that. And then we spent the last hour or so of the meeting. The meeting was held at Waubonsie Community College. We spent some time touring, getting a tour of the facilities. The college has gone through a relatively recent capital upgrade, several million dollars. I think you said it was 20-some million, but they ended up with, I think, 4 or 5 new buildings or major modifications to their existing facilities out there. And it was pretty cool to see. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Lundy.
Library and they have an open survey right now on their website, and I think the Shrewsbury Chamber of Commerce has it on their website as well. And it's a survey to find out what the community priorities are and what their needs are. And the library needs this and helping form their new strategic plan. So everyone can get on the website and fill it out. And they're also going to have 4 focus group sessions. The library will be having for the same purpose. And 2 of them will be Zoom remote and 2 are in person. So they can, get everybody's feedback and, find out what the library needs to be providing, what everybody in the community wants from the library to help with the strategic plan. Any age is welcome, so it's not just adults on that. Those dates are Wednesday, October 13th, Wednesday, October 20th, Saturday, October 23rd, and Thursday, October 28th. You can also go on the website of the library and have it, at least I know in the calendar section, which one has the room and the time and the spaces. But yeah, so fill out that survey so it can help the library figure out what all they need to provide for us and help us.
Is that a good cross-promote item?
Yes, I just was not aware of it, so I
Okay.
put down to public.
Perfect.
Yeah, you can check the website. Yeah, I think they just put it on there.
Okay.
You found it? Yeah, on the survey.
That's good. I mean, obviously we have a lot of followers and they support things that we're running. We should, be doing the same. So
Yeah,
thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, I just want to help figure out what our priorities are in the community so they can add it to their strategic plan. And I told them they need to let us know what the village can do to help that. So I've got a list.
Oh boy. Everybody's got a list. Thanks, Heidi. Trustee White.
So let's see, last weekend with the IML, Friday and Saturday, which went very well. Trustee Chalmers was there. Did some mandatory training that needs to be done. Did you get my certificate?
I did.
Said a really good presentation on tips. Great one about gaming until the end when he said it really only applies to home world. I wish you would have said at the beginning. But really brought up some great points on gaming, and that the municipality gets 5%, and that's it. And just how strong that lobby is. Just the amount of money they dump into the legislature. But it's something that we might want to look at when we start looking at the liquor licenses. That's one thing we can control. If we're just doing a 4 license, we might want to adjust those fees to better suit the reality of what we're allowing from an income standpoint for the people. And then there was some really cool people that like the displays and stuff. Expo, yeah. And I did a really neat one on leasing technology. I talked to Chief about it and some of the stuff that's going on in the village, and just Chief was already looking into some of the stuff, and he assured me that he really is into looking to advance technologically some of the things that they do from a policing standpoint. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that come forward. I think everybody will be excited about it because it's just neat stuff. On a kind of a somber note, former trustee Kevin Geary, I talked to his wife last week. He is in a coma in Alabama with COVID. So I ask that you keep your prayers and thoughts.
Thank you for letting us know. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Heron?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Trustee Walter?
Nothing to report this time.
Thank you. Trustee Bonnie?
I had a meeting this afternoon with Chief Perkins, reference the training center. It was a pretty good meeting. Brainstorm some ideas that we're going to continue to work on, and I'll bring back to you guys to see if it fits the needs for the village.
Excellent. That's probably a good approach too, is, bringing it back and having a little discussion during your, trustee report as to what they're finding, and you can give them a sense of where we are if you have any questions. So I think that's good. Okay, under President's report, I did have a meeting at the airport today, so they are trying to build a larger hangar and expand, even though they have a very busy flight school. They're trying to do more with their flight school, so trying to figure out how it impacts the village, and talked about airplane sales. We're not, can't have a car dealership, and we can build some airplanes here in Sugar Grove. So there's a lot there, and I think there's real potential out of the airport. So keeping those relationships going. As I have more information, I'm happy to share, but right now I don't have much other than it was good discussion. I also met with Madam Chair Perot out of the King County Board today. One of the things, we discussed a multitude of things. One was the pedestrian bridge, brought that up. She has that as her top list item that she's going to try to figure out what the issue may be. I explained that we have multiple parties all interested. They're already paying, toward the 20%, but explained our concerns with the long-term ownership and maintenance going forward. So she said she would work on that for me, or at least give me some information. Hopefully it's positive. I also spoke to her about the Metro. She did ask about the Metro and what our position was here in Sugar Grove, and if we want it. I said yes, and she was describing something that was maybe a little bit smaller in scale, that she envisioned that it would kind of dead end here, in almost like a trolley system that would come, turn around, and go back, that would run more frequently, but that would ultimately bring people from here to Aurora to then get on what you need. But then bringing people from the end of the line, maybe out here for the airport or Waubonsee or whatever it may be. So there was discussion. I did tell her that we absolutely wanted it. She, talked about we could have maybe multiple stops, like we were supposed to have a stop at Settlers. There could be a stop and another one down here in town. So conversation will continue regarding the Metro. It's not forgotten about. She also brought up Congresswoman Underwood and infrastructure improvements, all sorts of different things. So we will continue those discussions. I also addressed the 47 and 88 interchange and development possibilities in and around that interchange, and that our biggest issue in Sugar Grove is infrastructure, and so I conveyed that to her. And what's good for us is good for the county, and we need some support and some help. So hopefully, moving forward with different ideas, and at least keeping that line of communication open to see what's available to us. I also did attend the IML conference, but unfortunately was only able to go on Thursday. And one of the meetings that I went to was USDA grants and loans, kind of similar to your experience as I sat there and then went through all this stuff and got super excited about it all, and then thought that one of their lasting comments was, well, if you're in close proximity to a large city, you basically don't qualify for any of this. But it was like all targeted. Are you under 10,000? I'm like, That's us, you know, and then we get to the end of, oh, but you touch on, you know, the second largest city in the state. I'm like, no. So, but it was really interesting for small communities that grants and different loan options, and some of their loans are 0% financing. So it's, there's a lot of good stuff happening there, and that's just, I don't even know. We talked about water towers. I mean, there was a lot, but, and that's all I have. That's it. It's I know. Okay, listen. We're doing over-unders on meetings.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion. I have a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? I got a second on trustee here. And first on trustee White. So roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee White?
No.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie?
Aye.
Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Trustee Lennon? Aye. Trustee Shelby?
Motion passes. Adjourned.
I'm gonna get used to that.